All right, in this video I'm going to show you how we're going to start out with your birdhouse. So core birdhouse planner, this is the plan for it. And I'm going to do a few different videos, that way you're not sitting there watching all one long video at the whole time. And this video we're going to show you, so I've already got all the pieces cut out. That you're going to do first. These are your 12-inch pieces. Oh, sorry, these are not your 12-inch pieces. I got the wrong ones. These are your 12-inch pieces. And these are your 9 1/4. These are your 7 1/2. Your 7 1/2, I haven't ripped these on the table saw yet. I'm going to show you a video on how to rip these down on the table saw. These are your 3-inch pieces. All right. And your bottom is actually made of a 1x8. Got some tape on the back I need to peel off. And so your bottom is what everything is going to sit on. Your entire birdhouse is going to be made out of 1x6s. A 1x6 is 3/4 of an inch thick. All right. And 5 1/2 inches wide. So it's 5 1/2 this way and 3/4 this way. Now, one of the things I want to show you, and I'm actually kind of glad this piece of wood that I got and I cut all the stuff out of, this wood is cupped. I don't know if you can see this curve along the wood here. That's going to make it a little more difficult to build your birdhouse, but it's almost impossible to get it. Especially the thinner the lumber, the more likely it is to cup. And the cup almost always, I don't know if you can see these, the grain rings, they go this way. The cup almost always goes the opposite direction of your grain rings. So these are your 12-inch pieces. The first thing that we're going to do, and I'm going to have to walk away from the camera for a minute, cut, and then come back. But it shouldn't take me very long. First thing that you're going to want to do is measure up on the side 9 1/4. I got my tape measure, pencil. I'm going to put a mark at 9 1/4. I'm going to do the same thing on this one right here. And be very precise when you do that. On each board, I've got a mark at 9 1/4. I'm going to take my speed square and I'm going to mark a line all the way across it. Now, I'm going to do this very, very light. You don't actually even have to do it all the way across. You can just do it on the other side of here because that's really what you need. All right, but if you want to, you can do it all the way across. And if I do it, the reason I do it lightly is because you're going to end up sanding. You're gonna have to sand this off, and the darker you make the line, the harder you gotta sand. All right. So I got my line on each side here. I then need to find the middle. Well, theoretically, your 1x6 should be 5 1/2 inches wide. I always like to measure it just to make sure. Now, since this one is cupped, it's actually measuring 5 7/16. So half of 5 1/2, we're gonna say that it's 5 1/2 inches wide. Half of 5 1/2 is 2 3/4. What I'm gonna do is I'm going to do a 2 3/4, what I would call light. So basically I'm gonna find 2 3/4 and I'm gonna go back like about a 32nd. That should actually be the middle of my board right there. I'm gonna do the same thing. We're gonna measure this board just to make sure, see what it is. This one actually, on that side, is 5 1/2. Let's see if it's any different. Yeah, it's 5. So on this side, the side that it's cupped on, that it's arched on, is actually 5 1/2. The other side is 5 7/16, just because of that cup in the board. So I got my marks: 9 1/4 up, 9 1/4 over halfway, which is 2 3/4. I'm just using this as a straight edge. I'm just going to connect these 2 points. Make a mark. And be precise when you do this. Make a mark. So that right there is a 45-degree angle on the miter saw. So if you take that over to the miter saw, set it on 45, that should be a 45-degree angle. And 45 is one of the most common angles other than 0 that we cut them. And the saw actually should lock in place at 45. at a 45-degree angle. So if you'll give me a second, you're gonna hear the saw run. I'm gonna go cut these and bring them back and show you what I'm looking for. All right, so if you can see in the video, my line it's on here, like the saw cut off right at the line, and down here there's a little bit of line showing. All right, that's probably because the saw is maybe like a half a degree out of whack. Even if you set it on 45, it's about a half a degree out. So that half a degree ends up doing this. So the really important thing is to make sure, you can take your speed square to check this, is that this point matches this point over here. And if they're not, you can always go shave a little bit off. And this one that one's pretty good. It's pretty much right on. Let's check this one. And there's nothing wrong with having to make an adjustment if you got to make an adjustment. Now this one, that point right there, this point here needs to come down maybe a 1/16. The other thing that's really, this part's really important, is to see if these two, is to stack these two on top of each other and make sure that these two match. That's really important. That one matches. That one is maybe a 30-second off. A 30 seconds is not gonna hurt anything. If you get more than a 1/16 off on that, you really need to make them match. So if you need to go trim a little bit off, that will work out. And sometimes, if these two, they will match this way, but if you flip one of the pieces around, they won't match. And mine, if I flip them around, let's see, they still match pretty decent, but they match better the other way. So whenever I actually go to fix my birdhouse, I'm gonna make sure that I have both of these trying to face the same direction, all right? That way this side and this side and this side and this side. So a lot of times what I will do is I will take and I will label this side A on both pieces. I will label this side B on both pieces. That end grain is gonna get covered up right there, so you're never gonna see A and B. But that lets me know whenever I spread these apart that the A is on one side, the B is on the other side. That way I've got matching pieces. All right. Now, the next part, I'm actually gonna take the camera with me, so these are your roof pieces. One of your roof pieces, I'm gonna flip this over, needs to be ripped down to, here we go. Roof piece A needs to be ripped down to 4 1/4 inches wide. It's 7.5 inches long. They're already 7.5 inches this direction. We're just gonna rip them on the table saw to 4 1/4 and rip this one down to 5. One is wider than the other because they're gonna go like this, and that accommodates, if you can see that, that accommodates for this 3/4 of an inch thickness here. So if this one's 5, this one only needs to be 4 1/4 because you've already got that overlap there of 3/4 of an inch. So we're gonna take this over to the table saw, show you how I want you to rip this down. If you haven't cut on the table saw yet, I would prefer, if you haven't done this yet, I would prefer if you come get me, and I will help you out with this see if we can make this work out. Give me a second. There we go. All right. Whenever you rip these down, you don't have to mark a line. You can just set your table saw up. First thing I want to do is get my blade height. My blade height is too shallow. And my blade height, so I got to spin this front wheel here. We want our table saw 1 tooth above the wood, and at 1 tooth above the wood, we're going to put our guard back down. Your table saw, there's a little red line here. I'm going to rip the first one down to 5. Put that on 5. Here, these pieces are only 7.5 inches long. So the way that I want you to rip this is I want you to put your hand like so. All right. You're going to push the piece up against the fence. You're going to start out with your push jig already on your board. Once the board gets into the saw blade, you can let go with your left hand and push it all the way through with your right hand. Do not try to grab that tiny little piece with your hand. I had a kid do that and actually touched the blade and the blade dropped. The technology worked like it was supposed to, but that is not what we want to have happen here, all right? So we got that set on 5. A lot of times I will take the cup side and I'll actually put the cup side down. We're going to turn our saw on. Wait for my blade to stop. He actually touched the blade while the blade was on there. You can see how tiny this piece of wood is, and he reached in here to get it and just barely hit his finger right there on the blade, which is not a good idea. Now we're going to reset our saw. All we got to do is move this down to 4 1/4. Put that right there. We're going to run this piece through. I'm going to put my cup side down. Hopefully you can see that once the board got into the blade, I could actually take my hand off of it. So we're going to show you what all that looks like now. We're going to get us back in position. I got this thing on a selfie stick. Really good for video and stuff for class. So there's a piece, there's the other piece, and those will end up something like that on your birdhouse. And if I measure, this should be 5, and this also should be 5 because of your 3/4. So these I'm just gonna sit over here for right now. One of the other things, I've already cut all these out actually. These are the pieces that I want you to cut first. The very first pieces whenever you're making your cut leaves. These are called the planter side pieces. So the birdhouse has 2 little parts right here to where you can basically have a planter. All right. Those I want you to cut first. I'm going to show you why on this piece of wood right here. This already has a 22.5 degree angle cut. And the way that we actually cut it, you can do this actually one of 2 ways. This board is roughly, let's see how long here, 28 inches. So on that, we're supposed to come down 5 1/4. This is already on a 22.5. So if that's on a 22.5, I could just take my speed square, measure down from the long point 5 1/4, and mark that across. I could just cut that straight. So you could do it that way. All right. The other way that you could do it, all right, and once you get one piece cut out, you can trace it. The other way that you could do it is to come down 5 1/4, make a line there. All right. Come up 3 inches. So up 5 1/4, up 3 inches. Take your speed square and connect those 2 lines. You basically as a straight edge. And that should be a 22.5 degree angle, which is half of a 45. All right, and you can go cut that. The reason I want you to cut this first is if you look at this board, I can hold my hand over here and still make this cut. I had some students one time, this is what alerted me to this problem, but I had some students that got down to the last little bit of their board. And if I did that same thing, I'm just gonna do this real quick just for example purposes here. All right, if I made a straight line across there, now what I got left here, my hand is on, especially with the saw turned like this, the saw blade is, you know, even as close as I can get. Like the saw blade's 2 inches from my finger, which is not what we like. I want your hand to be at least 4 inches away from the blade, and that's at a minimum. I would even actually prefer it to even be further. So you cut these pieces first, your planter side pieces, you cut those first while the board is still long. Very first pieces you cut out these 4. This, you do not want to cut it out like this. You will get hurt. You end up cutting your finger off, and that'll be bad for me, that'll be bad for you, that'll be bad for everybody, all right? So this first video was just to show you kind of how to cut out your front pieces, things to be aware of. In the next video, I'm going to show you how to put everything together. So the next video is going to be basically an assembly video of how to build your birdhouse.